It's time for our regular scheduled board meeting. Tonight, I've asked Eric Musgrove to open us with the invocation and the pledge. Please stand.
Let's pray. Our Father, we come to you tonight to thank you for the many wonderful blessings you have so richly bestowed upon us. We thank you for this time that we have together as citizens of this great county, this great state, and this great nation, to be able to conduct the business. Pray that you will be with the leaders as they make those choices which will bring honor and glory to your name and to this county. Pray that you be with those that are first responders, those in the military, those who are in harm's way wherever they may be. Pray that you'll be with those that are suffering in various places such as Hawaii and other places from natural disasters and war. Pray will be with us, and everything we do will be in accordance with your will. In the Son's name we pray. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving into our first item on the agenda is approval of minutes from May 1st, 2018 regular scheduled board meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Sessions.
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner Richardson. Having discussion or changes, anything? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Moving on to consent agenda, we have items 2 through 11. Is there anything that anyone's wishing to pull to discuss?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to ask a question about 10, so if you could pull that for discussion.
Any others? All right, I'll have a motion to approve 2 through 9 and 11.
Moved.
Second.
A motion to approve by Commissioner Richardson, second by Commissioner Fleming. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Moving back to item 10, authorization to purchase 3 extended cab pickup trucks for Public Works, utilizing the NJPA contract. 3 trucks will be purchased instead of 2. 2 were four-wheel drive crew cabs and 1 regular cab were approved in the budget. Budgeted impact will be purchased within the adopted budget. Mr. Richardson?
Just a question about the verbiage. 3 being purchased instead of 2. What was the purpose behind that? Was it pricing? Was it just timing, or something? 3.
It's actually
3 for 3.
3 instead of 3. There were 2 crew cab trucks and 1 regular cab that had been approved in the budget. So we're getting 3 extended cab trucks instead of that combination.
Okay.
And it fits within the same dollar amount, but it's going to work out better for what we're trying to accomplish. We also had difficulty finding used trucks that were suitable in Sarasota County this year, so when we get these 3, it frees up those 3 used trucks to go back to some of our other crews as well.
Okay. Thank you. That answers my question.
Any other questions on item 10? I'll have a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Richardson, a second by Commissioner Fleming. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right. The next item on the agenda are time-specific items, and we got about 10 minutes before we get there. We'll move on to, if Miss Betty, can you handle your staff report in 10 minutes? And we'll move on to staff reports, number 19, Betty Lawrence, Director of Libraries.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, community, thank you for the opportunity to come and give a report again with regards to the libraries. I only have a few things, but try and get through those, and I know it won't take 10 minutes. So first of all, I need to let the board know that we have received the executed grant agreement between Suwannee County and the state. Each year, we, or the board at least, have an agreement with each other with regards to the state funding that we receive. But I have those, and they will be going to the clerk sometime tomorrow.
Good deal.
Also want to mention our state funding. I usually don't do this, but this time I wanted to because 2 years ago, we started to talk about the Darling Park Library, and I know that there was a lot of anxieties about what the cost would be and how we would fall short in terms of our state funding, but I'm really grateful and thankful for the donations that came in from private citizens because they really helped us to not only maintain the state funding that we received last year, but we have about $22,000 more. And I know that that's only because those donations upped what is considered to be the local matching funds. So I wanted to express that. I also want to talk a little bit about some of the programs that will be coming up, a few that we've already had. One program that I was particularly impressed with at the library since I saw you last was the one on identity theft. And we will be posting some of the tips from that program on the library's website. I encourage everybody to take a look at it. I think you'll be surprised at some of the ways, easy ways, that your identity can be stolen. And also, you'll be impressed with some of the precautions that you can take in order to prevent that. So I see some new faces, so I'm going to do my little spiel on the best way to experience the library, and some old faces. The best way to experience the library is to visit the library. You can visit the library. We have 3 libraries in Suwannee County, 3 in Madison County, 3 in Hamilton County, and we all share our resources, our programs. So please do visit us or visit us online. But I have found that it's okay for me to get up before people and say how great the library is, but you don't get the full measure until you come and use the library. So I invite you to do that. Want to give a thanks to a couple of organizations that's been helping us with our programming. A lot of our programming is done via grants or contributions, and I'm really pleased that we have organizations in the community that will step up and help us. I want to give a shout out to the Suwannee County Tourist Development Council. We will be having a North Florida Heritage Festival at the Heritage Park and Gardens, but we're partners with that. And we also are receiving LSTA grants for that. It's the first time that we've done it here. I expect it to be a really great program. That's not until September, but what I have found is that I have to say it one time, I have to say it again, and I have to remind you yet another time. So I hope that you all will join us for that. There is one program that will be, well, it's not really a program, it's an exhibit, but we will have programs centered around it. That one won't be here until 2019, but I received word today. And it's supported by the U.S. Congress. 3 states was granted funding in order to do this particular exhibit, rent it. And it's called Crossroads, Change in Rural America. Illinois, Florida, and South Carolina are the 3 states that was granted funds in order to have this exhibit. So I think that that will be great. Please keep it on your radar screen. Come out and join us for that. I asked my staff to give me a list, and I won't go through this whole list, of those programs that we've had where we've used local skills. And I'm telling you, it is just outrageously great. I mean, we have a lot of talent in this community, and we have some great programs at the library. If you'll come over, even if you just visit us online, you'll find out what talent we have here in the community. Beekeeping, gun safety, homesteading, ranching, cow raising, jelly making. I mean, just a whole list of those kind of small programs that a lot of our citizens are interested in. So I wanted to give a shout out to them because we bring in people to do programs from other areas, and they do a great job. But we have a lot of special talent here in our community, and if you have a talent that you would not mind sharing with us, I encourage you to contact the library, and we'll get you on the schedule. I think that's probably about it for now, unless you have questions for me. Summer reading. I probably couldn't walk back in the library if I didn't mention this. But that's coming up in June. You know, every year we do summer reading, and it's for adults, young adults, people of all ages. So I did put up my little usual display out in the foyer with some brochures. We'll be starting in June. So if you're interested yourself, please come and join us. But in particularly, if you know of any child, please just give them the word, their parents a word, anybody. Have them come and join us. It's all free. Well, it's not free because the county pays for it, and then we get it in our contributions from our citizens, but it's well worth it. As I've expressed before, kids who participate in summer reading do so much better when they go back to school during the fall. So thank you for that. The next time I come to you, I hope to be able to give you a progress report on the LED sign that you've approved this already, that will be mounted at the library, and also I'll share a video with you so that, a video that we will feature on it as a kind of groundbreaking or what have you. Any questions for me?
I don't have any, but thank you, Ms. Betty.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We got 2 minutes until we get to our time specific. I'm going to go ahead and jump down to general business, item number 20, discuss with possible board action a business incentive grant, rebate grant for an existing, I can't talk. Yeah, an existing business of J&J Enterprise LLC. Dr. Alvin Jackson.
Once again, it is another great evening in beautiful, wonderful Suwannee County. This evening, we have an incentive application, J&J Suwannee Enterprises, and it's the name of the ownership will change, but this is a business we're attempting to retain here in Suwannee County, and that is auto parts and distribution. The capital investment on this is about $335,000. Square footage 3,500. The net new jobs, 2 new jobs. And you notice on the new jobs, there are no points allocated because they don't meet the minimum criteria. The average wage is about $10 per hour, which gives them a total points of about 12 points, which entitles them to 3 years of ad valorem and tangible tax rebate. The maximum amount is $5,600 of $5,602.50, and basically this rebate will be paid out over a 7-year period of time in increments of $800 a year if they perform and meet the thresholds.
And that's if they perform each year,
Each year.
they'll get their percentage. Any questions for Dr. Jackson? Oops, sorry. No questions. What's the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chairman, motion approved.
I second it.
We got a motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming, a second by Commissioner Sessions. Any further discussion?
Have a disclosure at this point. Mr. Hale?
Go ahead. I'm not going to be voting on this one just because there's a relative involved in that business.
All right. All right, I got a motion by Commissioner Fleming, and a second by Commissioner Sessions. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That was passed 4-0 with Commissioner Hill not voting for a conflict.
For the record, Commissioner Hales filed with the board here, and I'll hand it to Eric for official filing, Form 8B on the conflict form.
All right, it is now 6:17, so we'll move back to our time.
Miss Betty's one.
Do what?
Miss Betty?
Oh, Ms. Betty?
If I may, I have one other thing that I need to ask the board about, and this has to do with the Florida Quilt Trail. We would like to be able to join that, but it calls for mounting a quilt plaque on the library. I'm not real sure what the legal logistics or what have you is with regards to that, but I'd like to ask the board permission to do it or to make a decision next time with regards to us joining it. We like the Liberty, the Patriot Liberty design, which is this. I think that if you've been coming down what is it, now 129, there's one up on the wall in front of the museum, right, Eric? There is one hanging on that wall, so if you get to see it, I don't know. I assume that everybody probably knows what it looks like as you're passing by. But I would like to be able to have the library join that.
I don't have a problem with it, but I'd like to maybe put it on the next agenda.
Okay.
Because I want to talk to Mark to make sure that there's no issues with it going up on the,
That'd be fine. Okay, thank you.
thank you. All right, moving on to item 12, at 6:15 PM or soon thereafter, as the matter can be heard, hold a public hearing to discuss with possible board action developers agreement, Concept Development, Inc., and Concept Construction of North Florida, Inc., regarding the intersection at County Road 250 and State Road 51. This time, we'll turn our attention to County Attorney Jimmy Pravat to swear anyone in that's wishing to testify.
And anybody anticipate that you may give testimony this evening with regard to the matter? All right, seeing none, to be sworn at this time. The public hearing is open.
All right, for our staff presentation, I guess that'll be you presenting?
I'll be doing the staff presentation. There we go. Gentlemen, if you'll recall, about 60 days or so ago, we had, from the P&Z, we had an approval with conditions with regard to doing a subdivision and reformatting some land out right there at that intersection of 250 and 51. And on the other side of the street, it's 145th Road, I guess, where it joins up there at that funky angle. And what we decided at that particular time was that by getting the approval that they had for the zoning and land use changes, that they would be responsible for any of the paving that would be done on 145th Road. And in addition, they would be giving to the county a prospective nip off the corner of the triangle piece that's on the far north end, so that we could go for a future alignment of 250 and 145th. Well, things have progressed rather well and rather quickly, and we've got with DOT, and we own the property over there on the corner, so that we were able to get working on the alignment. At this point, you've already gone through and had a task order that's been approved for North Florida Engineering to complete that task of getting the alignment done. What has changed, though, is that when we met with DOT initially was okay with the idea of having two separate permits going for the alignment as long as, we met in the middle there of 51. But after reflection, DOT called us back and said that they, number one, to save money on the permitting costs for the developer, but also they would have only one entity to have to deal with. They would like for the county to be able to do both ends of it, do the paving on 250 and on 145th. So that's just how we were making the application, and submitting everything to DOT will be underneath the county's name. But because we want the developer to pay for that part that they're supposed to be responsible for, we needed to enter into a development agreement with the developer to make sure what each's responsibility are under the agreement, and to get back on the costs, to make sure we narrow those things down. The agreement has an estimate of costs that has been performed by the engineer at this point, and in the agreement, both parties, the county and the developer, acknowledge that it is just an estimate, guesstimate, and they'll be paying for everything that's going to be, for lack of a better word, east of 51, and we'll be doing everything that's on 250 side or the west side. And so the development agreement you have before you embodies what we propose as an understanding. We've gone through it with counsel for the developer, and matter of fact, it's already been executed by the developer, and I seek your approval to go ahead and move forward with the agreement.
All right, does anyone on the board have any questions for Mr. Pravat? Hearing none, this time I'll open the floor for public comment. No one was sworn in, so if you do decide to come speak, we'll have to swear you in. Seeing none, at this time we'll close public comment. Discussion from the board or a motion?
I'll just go ahead and make a motion since it's moving so fast. I'm happy to see this. Sure. Moving this quickly, so I'll make a motion to accept it.
I got a motion by Commissioner Sessions to approve the developers agreement. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner Richardson. Any further discussion? None. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. This time we'll close public hearing.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to our next public hearing, item 13, at 6:15 or soon thereafter, as the matter can be heard, hold a public hearing to consider adoption of CPA 18-01, an ordinance pertaining to the application by Charles Downing and Carla Patterson to amend a future land use map by changing the land use classification from commercial to residential. Again, anybody, what we got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more public hearings. Can we go ahead and swear everybody in?
That'd be fine.
Anybody that's wishing to speak at any of the public hearings at this time, if you would stand to go ahead and be sworn in.
All right, thank you. Would each of you raise your right hand? Do each of you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give in the respective public hearing that you give before the board this evening will be the truth, so help you God? All right, thank you very much. When you do approach the podium, if you would, please state your full name and address and what your association is.
I'll just save us a little bit of time for having to do that 6 more times. All right. At this time, we'll turn our attention to Ron Meeks, Planning and Zoning, for a presentation.
Mr. Chairman, board members, the first application that you have for your consideration tonight is CPA 18-01 by Charles Downing and Carla Patterson. This is a small-scale future land use amendment to change the future land use classification on the subject property from commercial to residential 4. The properties in question is lots 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 12, and 13 of Block 73 of Dowling Park. For your general reference, this is the block that is immediately behind the First Baptist Church of Dowling Park. The property owner and applicant, they live on lot number 8. They also own lot number 8. Lot number 8 has a future land use classification of residential 4, and that is where they have their single-family dwelling. In looking for the possibility of placing a home on some of the other lots for their children, it was determined that the zoning and land use on that property was commercial. Commercial is not a permitted use for residential unless it's an accessory to a business. They do not have a business. They do not intend to use the property for commercial needs. So they had submitted the application to amend the future land use from commercial to residential 4. To the immediate west, it is contiguous with the residential 4 classification, so there would be no skip in the land use pattern, so we don't have any issues of spot zoning or anything there. The total size of the property is approximately 1.5 acres in size total, so it's a relatively small piece. Those lots in there platted years ago and are relatively small in size. So this would be the first step in their process in amending the land use. Because this is a small scale, the board could handle that with one hearing. So you do have a proposed ordinance in your packet for adoption if you so choose to amend this land use classification.
Thanks, sir.
At this time, I'll enter the file into the record.
All right, thank you. I'll take the file and the application included therein as composite exhibit number 1.
This time, does anyone from the board have any questions for Mr. Meeks?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Meeks, on lots on Block 73, there is an alleyway that extends through the lots, and it falls between lots 12, 13, 3, and 4 on the alleyway there. Are they intending to make a use that will cross over the platted alleyway?
No, sir. The actual location of where they're proposing to actually place a home would be on either lot 12 or 13, and that home would be completely contained within the boundaries of that lot.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
so what is the purpose of that alleyway, or that, is that for easement for utilities? What is the separation on the lots?
Those alleyways, I think, were somewhere around 20 feet in size. If I can remember correctly, they're between every block.
It's broke up in square blocks out there, and every one of them has it. I believe they're old utility easements,
Well, some of them were used for access points.
access
Yeah, they
points.
weren't exactly dedicated just for utilities going.
But I mean, that's
So,
what they've kind of turned into. A lot of power lines
Yeah.
run down them. But some of them are platted as even roads, but well, it is what it is now.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Meeks? Hearing none, all right. This time, we'll open the floor to public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, if you were sworn in, just step to the mic and state your name and address for the record. Hearing none, this time we'll close public comment and go into board discussion. Being very familiar with this area and the way that the commercial A's and the residential A's, I would ask the board to approve this tonight. So, other than that, I don't really have any comment. If y'all don't have any other questions, just entertain a motion.
Any questions? Other than, Mr. Chairman, other than the lots divided and it's getting changed back, are they intended on moving, having a dwelling place there?
I believe that was my understanding, correct? Yeah.
They will maintain the ownership of the lots. They're not going to transfer an ownership, but they will permit, a home on one of the other lots for the children.
Okay. So that's pretty much the purpose of it, is to have the extra lots, build a home on lots 12 and 13.
12 and 13 is vacant. They have their primary residence on lot number 8, which is the lot at the corner. It's not included in this application because it already has a residential classification. On the other lots that are behind the house, they actually have a large accessory building that is like a personal shop, workshop thing. So it's not being used for commercial usage, but, because it would be an accessory, it'll be fine in the residential district.
Okay.
Are the rest of those lots commercial, or is it all broke up?
So, well, this is the westernmost portion that would be closest to where the residential ends and the commercial starts.
I got you.
So this would be just an extension of that residential district. Now, as you go east, it is commercial.
Gotcha.
And in that commercial, you do have a lot of sparsely scattered residential that is existed prior to the zoning regulations.
I was going to say, you got residential already within the
Scattered
commercial.
all in there.
It was a residential subdivision, and then as it's grown out there, the commercial kind of encroached into the residential side of it, I guess.
The commercial kind of basically goes 2 blocks deep off of 250. Okay, so where you got the First Baptist Church of Downland Park that actually fronts 250, this is the immediate block behind it.
Mr. Chairman, there's nothing more. I'll for motion approved.
Second.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming, a second by Commissioner Richardson. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. This time, we'll close public hearing. We'll move to our next public hearing, item number 14. At 6:15 PM or soon thereafter, as the matter can be heard. Hold a public hearing to consider adoption of LDR 1801, an ordinance pertaining to a application by Charles Downing and Carla Patterson to amend the official zoning atlas of Suwannee County by changing the zoning designation on the following described property from commercial general to residential single-family. Ron Meeks.
Mr. Chairman, board members, this is an accompanying amendment. We've already changed the future land use map of the county. This would be the second process in that of actually amending the official zoning atlas of the county. The current zoning is commercial general. They've requested residential single-family on the same lots, which is 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 12, and 13 of Block 73 of Dowling Park. So first process is to amend future land use. Second process would be amend the official zoning atlas. So at this time, I will enter the file into the record as part of this request.
And the same file and the application included therein will be admitted as composite exhibit 1.
All right, any questions for Mr. Meeks? Hearing none, at this time, we'll open the floor to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak, make their way to the podium, state their name, address for the record. Seeing none, at this time, we'll close public comment, move on to board discussion. Being that we just approved one, I hope there's not a lot of discussion for the second. Hearing none, they'll have a motion to approve the ordinance in relation to the amendment.
I make a motion to approve LDR 18-01.
Got a motion by Commissioner Sessions, still have a second.
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner Hill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. I got 5-0 vote. This time, we'll close public hearing. All right, moving on to item 14. No, wait, was that 14?
15.
15. I didn't scratch that one off. Oh, we don't want to do it again. At 6:15 PM or soon thereafter, as the matter can be heard, hold a public hearing to consider adoption of a resolution approving special permit request number SP 180501 by Oscar and Julie. You're going to have to help me with the last name.
Savedra.
To be granted a special permit under Section 14-6 of the Suwannee County Land Development Regulations for intense agriculture to construct 3 poultry houses. Ron Meeks.
Mr. Chairman, board members, the special permit you have before you as part of this request is SP 180501. It's an application by Julie and Oscar Savedra. Under Section 14.6 of the Land Development Regulations, lists intensive ag as an available special permit that can be permitted by the Board of County Commissioners. The zoning on the subject property is agricultural 1. It is currently in operation as a poultry farm. One of the houses that is part of this request, we've got a proposed to build 3 houses. One of those is actually a replacement from a home, from a poultry house that was burned previously. The access for this property is off of 240th Street. It's located in Section 29, Township 5 South, and Range 14 East. The other two poultry houses are proposed to be constructed to the northern portion of where the existing houses are. The required setbacks would be met off of the property lines. The access, as I previously stated, will be off of 240th Street. The size of the parcel is a 35-acre tract. The owners also own the farm that is to the immediate west that is closer to 129. It actually has additional poultry houses on it, and the owner themselves actually live on a 1-acre portion that is located to the west of this proposed farm that we have here. As far as the findings portion for the land development regulations, the ingress and egress would be off of 240th Street. Off-street parking is not required, but is provided for on site. Refuse areas exist on the property in various locations on the farm. Property is an active poultry farm with existing houses. Permits that may be required is limited to basically some electrical upgrades, possibly if needed. There's no special buffer requirements in this district. Property has an existing sign at the entrance of the farm off of 240th. The required setbacks are being met. The comprehensive plan does allow for intensive agricultural to be permitted by a special permit. The existing land use pattern is agricultural, and other agricultural uses exist in the general area. No known impacts upon schools, utilities, and streets to the neighborhood, living conditions, traffic, drainage, air, or light. No known additional impacts to property values, and would not have any impact upon future development of the area. And as we previously stated with all the other ones, that we have increased production requires the need for construction of additional houses, as well as one of these being just a replacement. At this time, I will enter the file into the record, and you have a proposed resolution if the board so chooses to approve this request.
Thank you. Can I ask you also about the staff report? I'll take the application in as Composite Exhibit 1. Do you offer the staff report as well?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you. That'll be, it'll be just Exhibit number 2. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, does the board have any questions for Mr. Meeks? Hearing none, at this time, we'll open the floor to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, if they would, make their way to the podium. Seeing none, at this time, we'll close public comment and enter into any board discussion or consideration of a motion.
Make a motion.
Second.
We got a motion to approve by Commissioner Hill. I have a second by Commissioner Richardson. Any further discussion on it? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. This time, we'll close public hearing. Moving on to item 16, another public hearing. We'll hold a public hearing to consider adoption of a resolution approving a special permit request number SP 180502 by Florida Power and Light to be granted a special permit under Section 4.4.5B of Suwannee County Land Development Regulations for the utilities related facilities. At the time, we'll turn our attention back to Ron Meeks.
Mr. Chairman, board members, the special permit that you have for your request, number SP 180502, an application by Florida Power and Light Company. It's a special permit for utilities and related facilities. Subject property is located in an agricultural 1 zoning district. Size of the properties included as part of the request is almost right at 800 acres in size. The access for the site is off of Hogan Road. The properties that are included in this request are located in Section 24, Township 2 South, Range 14 East, Section 25, Township 2 South, Range 14 East, Section 30, Township 2 South, Range 15 East, and Section 19, Township 2 South, and Range 15 East. The request is to install solar arrays that would be set up on this proposed site to provide electricity to its customers. The site has previously been under timber. is bordered by Hogan Road to the east and to the north, as well as I-10 to the south. I know that we have some representatives from Florida Power and Light that would like to do a presentation and probably give a little bit more detailed information as part of this request. I don't have anything to add as part of my staff report. You do have a resolution included for approval if the board so chooses to do so. And at this time, I'll enter the file of my staff report into the record.
Thank you. Take them separately as exhibits. The application along with the accompanying documentation will be composite Exhibit 1. The staff report itself will be accepted as Exhibit 2.
Did you say we had a presentation?
Good evening. My name is Jim Bush, 303 Hastings Road, St. Augustine, and I've been sworn. I'm the regional manager for Florida Power and Light, and with me today and also planning to speak is Vanette Gadaya, who is our agent and counsel, and also Jeff West from FPL Solar Development Group. We just wanted to provide a short overview of our project and answer any questions that you have. We'd first like to thank county staff for their assistance through the application process. And I'd also like to say that you may know FPL is one of the primary electric providers in Suwannee County, and our service to the county and our relationship with the county is very important to us. What you may not know is that FPL's sister company is called NextEra Energy Resources, and they are a pioneer in utility-scale solar, and they're actually one of the largest generators of renewable energy in the world, mostly in solar and wind. And all of that is outside the state of Florida. This provides us with a unique opportunity to leverage that experience in bringing clean, renewable solar power to Florida and to Suwannee County. FPL is committed to clean energy, which is important to us all. Just real quick on the big picture. Since 2001, FPL has reduced carbon emissions by over 35%, while at the same time reducing dependency on foreign oil, most of it coming from Middle Eastern countries, by over 98%. FPL imported over 40 million barrels of oil a year in 2001. Today, it's under 1 million barrels of oil a year. That's a great story. We're essentially domestically sustainable today. Also, you may have heard last year in the news that the U.S. pulled out of the Paris Accords, but you probably didn't realize that FPL already meets and has for many years the clean power guidelines for carbon dioxide that was for the year 2030 that was outlined in the accord. We're already a clean company, and it's good to know that the state's largest electric provider is already meeting those more stringent emission guidelines, as the air that all Floridians breathe will be cleaner because of it. It's projects like this that allow us to continue. You can't hear me? I'm sorry. It's projects like this that allow us to continue to offset carbon emissions and continue to move in a clean energy direction. Advancing solar in Florida is an important part of FPL's clean energy strategy. And we believe, along with our customers, that solar should play an increasing role in Florida's energy mix in the years ahead. We are, after all, the Sunshine State. This project is another important step in our commitment to clean energy and to the environment. We're very excited about this project. We believe it's a great thing for the county, for the state, as well as for FPL. I'm now going to hand it over to Vanette, who also has some brief remarks.
Thanks, Jim. Vanette Gadelia. I am serving both as agent for the project. You'll see my name, I think, on the agenda, as well as attorney. My address is 119 South Monroe Street in Tallahassee, Florida. I have been sworn. Okay, great. First slide's up. So one of the things that Ron talked about was the location of the site, and hopefully you can see, I guess, there's a red outline of the 800-acre property located on, thanks, Jeff, on the slide that you're looking at on the slide presentation right now, and that, of course, is fronting I-10, and generally this is in the northeast corner or area of Suwannee County. It is about 5 miles east at its closest point from Live Oak, and then about 3 miles west of 75. And so that's the general location that we're talking about for the property. Thank you. And so Jeff's going to come up and talk, or we'll talk a little bit about the actual project and some images and what's actually going to go on the site. But I wanted to go ahead and just discuss with you kind of the high-level comprehensive plan and code things that, you know, we're all here to get approved today. It's a special permit, and so ultimately it has to comply with your regulations. And Ron hit already, of course, on the land use and zoning, but what we have is an Ag 1 land use zoning categories, which is specifically where your existing regulations say these type of facilities need to be located. And this is not new to you. Of course, you worked on a prior project, a solar project recently, so it makes it a little bit easier for me to talk with you about this. And then a couple of other things just locally that I know you might want to know about. Setbacks, of course, are established in your code. Frontage here, so front setbacks would be along Hogan Road. And we are complying across the board. The site plan and the materials that you have will show that we're in full compliance with those regulations for setbacks. One local issue is traffic. And so again, while we will have a temporary increase in traffic flow during construction, during the actual operation, there'll be minimal traffic and just what's needed for maintenance, which would be coming into the property off of Hogan Road. The site plan again shows you where that access is. We'll be working on drainage issues by getting our permits processed as your comp plan and code require through the DEP and the Water Management District. So all of that will happen. What will happen after this special permit hopefully is approved tonight is that Jeff will go through the permitting process to work with the agencies and figure out those details. And we'll come back to Ron with a detailed site plan that builds all of that structurally into what the ultimate development footprint looks like. So again, that's just highlights, and I am here to answer any questions. I'll turn this back over to Jeff.
Okay. I think we need a little bit taller mic here. Hi, my name is Jeff West, 303 Hastings Road in St. Augustine, Florida. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Commissioners, for your time this evening to hear about our exciting project. I just want to reiterate what both Jim and Vanette said. We're excited to bring this project to your county and advancing our clean renewable efforts for all of Floridians. We've been working on some solar projects over the last couple of years. Just recently in 2017 and 18, we brought roughly 600 megawatts of clean energy from the sun online. We tripled basically our solar production in 2016, which was just over 300 megawatts, and now we're operating close to 930 megawatts. Seems like maybe a drop in the bucket when you look at some of our larger natural gas plants, but we're pioneering our way to bring more affordable, cost-effective solar energy to all of Florida. I just wanted to highlight with this slide, we have 300 megawatts currently under construction right now to go commercial by the end of this year. And these projects will come on probably early January of 2019, but one of them is actually a neighbor of yours in Columbia County, and it's connecting into the same line that this project is proposed to connect into, and it's right off of I-10 behind the rest area. So you'll actually see that project under construction this year. Several of the other projects are in St. Lucie County. One's in Volusia County. That's another project of mine, the Pioneer Trail Solar Energy Center. And then obviously the one in Columbia is Sunshine Gateway, and then one in Miami. So these are some of the pictures of some of the most recent projects we brought online in 2017 and 18. Two of them are not far from here. In the Horizon Solar Energy Center is in Alachua County. It actually spans both Alachua and Putnam County. The FPL Coral Farms facility is in Putnam County in Florahome. And then we have the Wildflower Solar Energy Center is in DeSoto County. And that's an expansion of one of our first and early projects that we built in 2009. At the time, it was the largest solar energy center in the U.S. at 25 megawatts, covering roughly about 100 acres. seems small in comparison to what we're building now and what you're seeing out in the western part of the United States, but at the time it was the largest project. And then also the Indian River Solar Center in Indian River County. As you can see from these photos, some of the configurations are not your standard block. Like the Indian River Solar Energy Center, it's pretty standard block. It was primarily ag fields. Some of the other areas, we've arranged the panels so we can avoid any environmental impacts. And that's the great thing about solar. We have the ability to situate the panels so we don't impact wetlands or sensitive areas. And that's why you see some of those arranged the way they are. As the cost of solar continues to decline, it becomes more cost effective for our customers. And that's great news for our customers, and we're going to continue to bring cost effective solar over the next few years. Right now, solar is generally about 1% of our generation portfolio. We hope by 2023 to bump that up to 4%. At that point, it'll outpace our portfolio for oil. Right now, oil is about 4%, and we hope by 2023 we'll push that down to 1%. So we're looking at developing nearly 2,100 megawatts of solar by 2023, and then that's great for our customers because that saves them hundreds of millions of dollars in fuel costs. Now, there's two types of solar. You've probably heard of, solar thermal has been a part of Floridians' life for decades. A lot of people have solar thermal on their roofs to heat their pools. The other one is photovoltaic, and that's what we plan on implementing at our project here in Suwannee County. It uses photovoltaic panels to collect the sun's energy. It converts that to electricity in the form of direct current. We use alternating current in these rooms and every day in our power use, so we have to convert that using a DC AC inverter box, which you see in the diagram there. At that point, it runs to our substation through collector lines, and then we match that power using transformers to meet the electricity or the kilovolts of the transmission line. And then ultimately, it goes to the customer's house. So our project will be generating electricity in Suwannee County, but we are interconnecting to our transmission system so it can be used pretty much anywhere within our system. So that's good news for customers spread it throughout our service territory. Most likely that energy is used where the local demand is, so that would be locally used, but it has the potential to move out onto the transmission line and be used by other customers as well across the state. Now, the benefits of our solar energy facilities, as Jem mentioned earlier, is they're zero emission generation. So there's basically no odor, no pollution from our sites. They operate, they're virtually silent, and there's no increase to traffic, as Vanette mentioned. And we don't use water, and there's no fuel consumed on our sites. So the panels sit relatively low to the ground. When we look for potential sites to use, we look for areas that have already been cleared or relatively flat. We chose this site because it was a timber site and the landowner was clearing it. So it's relatively flat and it meets that criteria. It's also close to our existing transmission line, which runs right through the property. Now, the power that these projects generate, this is a 74.5 megawatt site, or 74,500 kilowatts. That's enough power equivalent to powering about 15,000 homes, or removing about 12,000 cars from the road each year. As we build these sites, it's about a 6 to 9 month window, and we use about 200 to 250 workers on site to put these together. So that's great news in terms of bringing jobs to the site. Although it's temporary, there's local businesses indirectly benefit from that as well. There's a multiplier effect associated with that. So local hotels, restaurants, those type of things, local contractors. And what we found at building some of our other sites, like in Alachua County and Putnam County, the majority of those workers come from the region or the Tri-County area. So that's been great for those counties in developing a workforce that can be carried on to other areas. So we're actually do on-the-site job training as well. Some of those jobs also come from our program that we've partnershiped with Indian River State College, and it's our Veterans for Solar program. And so at Indian River State College, we train veterans on how to build these solar facilities. And then we help with job placement at some of these construction sites. So we've seen a number of those jobs come through our sites in Alachua and Putnam County as well. I'll just give you an idea of kind of how a solar site is constructed. I've included some pictures here of the basically the pile or the post that's driven down into the ground, which is a U-shaped channel or C channel. And that's driven usually about 10 to 13 feet in the ground. Then we add the purlin structure onto that, or what we call the racking system. And you can see that in the second picture, second and third picture. And then we're simply bolting or clamping the solar panels to that racking system. These are all built for the wind speeds in the region. So they have to withstand the local wind speeds. As you can see, there's very little disturbance to the ground. The post is driven into the ground. It takes about 40 seconds to drive it into the ground with the driver. And then the racking system goes on and the panels are bolted on. So you can see from the grass underneath, the grass that was growing there, this was a Bahia farm. It's still going to grow as Bahia grass. We mow and maintain that grass, but there's very little soil disturbance. In fact, the only disturbance that occurs is when we're building the access pathways, so we can do maintenance on those sites. So we remove a few inches of topsoil. We put down geotextile fabric and some crushed stone, and that's really only our impervious surface on the site. And that's just so we can access the site and maintain the panels and inverters. This gives you another description of our panels. This is the Horizon facility after it was constructed. I wanted to show you some picture of the inverter, which is in the bottom middle. So that is an inverter transformer that will take the direct current that the panels are producing and convert that to alternating current. And it also transforms that power to a distribution level circuit that carries it to the substation where it can be interconnected to our transmission line. The panels that you can see, that's me standing in the bottom right, are about 6.5 to 8 feet off the ground. And this technology that we're using on this site, or this at the Horizon site, was a fixed tilt system, meaning the panels don't move. Now we're looking at potentially using a tracker system. We find that the cost on the tracking system has come down considerably in the last year or two, which makes the panels more efficient because you can produce a little bit more power during those shoulder hours when people are leaving for work and coming home. So that's great news. It increases the capacity quite substantially for the project in terms of when it's actually producing energy. I'm going to give you a little video of how the tracker works. Of course, it's not, but I'll go to my default. It says we put the computer in sleep. I have to re-enter my password.
Everybody turn your head.
Look.
I apologize, there's no music to go along with this. We'll have Alvin sing for us. So here are the panels themselves, sitting about 94 inches off the ground. The trackers are a little bit higher than the fixed tilt. That's why I had 6 to 8 feet in there. They're just single panels installed on a single axis tracker. So the single axis rotates and it's oriented due north, the axis itself, so the panels actually will follow the sun from east to west. And the little solar panel you see there controls the actual motor for the tracker. So we're not using any parasitic load from a distribution system or power from a grid. And so that little control box controls about 90 panels. As you can see throughout the day, we'll show it again just because it goes through a little quickly. But in the day, from early morning, the panels rotate. At noon, they're flat. They're exactly flat at noon, and then they rotate the other way, following the sun as it sets in the west. Actually, our first project we built in 2009, that 25 megawatt facility I was talking about, utilized a tracker. It used a different type of technology, which was more expensive. That was an R&D project that we were doing at the time. But here you can see it. The panels are rotating noon, flat, throughout the day, back to west. What's neat about this technology is if it senses any shading from other panels or trees, it'll adjust itself automatically to reduce that shading. So it's creating the most efficient power at the time. So they sit about 26 inches off the ground, or about 2 feet at their lowest point. So we did a simulation of what this project would potentially look like, and this is an aerial simulation. They take basically an aerial photo. They take our CAD level drawing, our engineering drawing, and they create a digital terrain model and then simulate what the project would actually look like. So you can see in the middle is Hogan Road that kind of bisects the eastern portion of the project, and then you have really two sections of the race separated by Rocky Creek. Now, Rocky Creek is a significant creek there that we've avoided, and we've avoided all wetland impacts on this site. That's kind of why you see the array as you do. There are, well, some sinks on the site on the west side that we've avoided. You can see from this picture, those little gray square boxes are inverters, and there's about 35 inverters on the site. And they all run the collection or the electricity back to the substation at the collector yard. So the site will be fenced in just for security reasons, and the National Electric Safety Code requires it. We are eventually planning to have a small O&M office, modular office at the collector yard, which would house 2 full-time engineers, and they would work on this project and the other project as well in Columbia County. So they would be there for both projects. For the most part, these projects are unmanned, 2 people for every 2 projects, so traffic is very light. And these jobs, as I said, are engineering-type jobs. You have to have an engineering degree. They are well-paid jobs. This is the conceptual site plan we submitted as part of our special permit application. The nice thing about this site is along the perimeters, it already has existing vegetation that acts as a buffer, but we've provided an area proposed for planting where there's gaps per the site plan to supplement that buffer. So that's a 15-foot wide buffer in the northwest portion that would provide basically a visual buffer from us and the abutting landowner in that area where there are no trees. And we would use native trees for that, between right around 6 inches in diameter, or 6 feet in diameter, 6 feet tall and about 3 inches in diameter when planted. We did hold an open house last week, so we sent mailings out to all the residents and abutting neighbors within a quarter mile of the project, inviting them to the open house. That open house was held at the Mount Olive Baptist Church last week, and we have, of the 40 or so invitations we sent out, we had about a dozen people show up. We spoke to them. We had boards presented similar to the boards in the background, and we have different tables for discussions over the project and engineering, development, environmental, and we talked to these people as they went around the room. It was a very successful open house. I think that a lot of the people around there were supportive and happy to see that clean energy or solar energy is coming to the Sunshine State. So just wanted to add that. And that is really all I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them, and I reserve the right to bring Vanette up or Jim to help me answer any questions I might have.
Mr. Chairman, I have a few questions.
All right, well, feel free.
On the 802.29 acres, how does that affect, or do it have any effect on the property? I noticed you talking about the grass. The grass is, manicured to be mowed and everything. And I know that the old power plant facility is still out there, but these solar panels are taking over for the old power plants. How much time frame, well, you probably can't tell what time frame is that these solar panels will wear out, or how does it, what's the longevity of those panels?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We take in degradation of the panels and basically their efficiency, basically 0.5% a year. So by the end of the life of the project at 25 or 30 years, we've designed the project so that today it's putting out 74.5 megawatts, and at the end of 30 years, it's putting out 74.5 megawatts. So the way we do that is by increasing the DC to AC ratio on the project. So we've taken that into account. And all the manufacturing specifications on the panels give you that degradation value, so you can model that. Of the 800 acres of property we purchased, only about 500 acres is going to be used for the actual solar facility. Like I said, we're avoiding Rocky Creek and any wetlands on the site, so those will be kept natural. And then it was a previous timber site, so we'll actually have to go out there and do some root raking and stump removal before we can build the site. So that'll be the first step once we start construction, and then we'll build the site, and we will plant grass. We'll plant grass and pollinator species that don't grow very high, because biggest portion of our maintenance is mowing, and so we want to plant something that doesn't grow and it's going to shade the panels. So we've actually worked with our local Audubon chapters at some of our other projects and Florida Audubon to help us with identifying species that don't grow very high, but they also attract pollinators like bees, hummingbirds, and solitary bees. So that's one thing we do, is work with Audubon and the Habitat Council to help us with that planting list based on the soils for this area.
Okay, one more question. How does lightning, when it flashes, how does it affect it?
Lightning?
Lightning.
Now, we haven't had any issues with lightning that I'm aware of at any of our sites. They do sit relatively low to the ground, and a lot of our, we build in protection controls, especially around our substations for lightning. So that is something that we, as a power utility company, we understand the effects of lightning. So it's just one of those things that, if an inverter is hit by lightning, we'll get out there and replace it. The nice thing about these inverters, their parts are kind of removable, interchangeable. So we keep parts on site, and it's kind of a swap out of parts and plug and play kind of system, which is nice.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
what is the risk of reflection, especially being on I-10 like that? I know you're going to mitigate some of that risk for the locals by having trees and stuff as a border, but what are you doing on the interstate?
It's a great question. If our panels are reflecting light, it means we're not capturing it and converting it to electricity. So we want to make sure we're converting as much sunlight as possible to electricity. So the panels themselves have an anti-reflective coating on the glass. Each panel is made up of a number of cells, solar cells, and then on top of that is anti-reflective glass. And they're dark. So they try to absorb as many spectrums of light as possible. And what we're seeing is we're getting calls fairly regularly from airports wanting to put panels right next to the runways. But we don't have a project like that in Florida that we've done. There's been others that have put large arrays right near the Lakeland Municipal Airport. And that's a lot of Air Force bases are doing the same thing.
Any other questions? Oh, well, hearing none, well, thank you, sir. At this time, I'll open the floor to public comments. Anyone wishing to speak from the public, make your way to the mic. If you were not sworn in at the beginning, if you would come up and be sworn in again, or for the first time.
Mr. Ward, do you swear or affirm the testimony you give before the board this evening will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Jim Ward, 27476 29th Place, Branford. You know, when you first put this presentation up there, I was trying to figure out where it was, Echo River. Never heard of an Echo River in Florida, and it finally dawned on me what it was. And it finally dawned on me that you were using Echo for the old, I guess that's from the Indian word Suwannee. I've heard that before. I don't care for the name. Why not Rocky Creek? Suwannee County facility. Something different besides Echo River. Doesn't do much for me, I got to tell you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, don't laugh, y'all. You heard me go on against Wesley for calling sisters down there two sisters for all these years.
Thank you,
You heard
sir.
me going about Suwannee down there in Suwannee County, how people get that confused. You see it all. I'm just saying, you know. Where the hell's Echo River?
We understand. Thank you.
Note taken.
No,
Oh,
we don't,
yeah.
no, we don't need to respond.
You're being baited, Bill.
I knew it had to be something.
Anyone else wishing to speak, they would make their way to the microphone. Seeing none at this time, we'll close public comment. Open the floor for any more board discussion.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Did you, would you request to put a copy of the presentation, slide presentation, or digital presentation in as an exhibit? Yes. All right, thank you. I'll accept that as exhibit number 3. Thank you.
All right. Any questions, discussion?
No question. I think the only other thing, some people see it being Ag 1, but I believe there are taxable things there with those stations and of that nature. Am I incorrect on that? Some of the substations?
I think his question was based on the ad valorem tax.
Ad valorem tax.
Do you want to touch base on that?
So there was recent legislation that exempted renewable facilities, a portion of renewable facilities from ad valorem tax. I think it was it, Jim, 80% was exempt? So there's still that 20% remaining for the solar panels and the inverters. That doesn't include the change in land use, so there's the change in land use and the additional incremental tax value in the land. And then that excludes substations and transmission as well. So there'll still be a significant, more so than was currently there under timber, a significant increase in the tax value of the project.
Any other comments or questions? Thanks, sir. Anything else from the board?
No, I don't have anything.
All right. Well, do I have a motion to adopt the resolution?
Motion.
Motion approved. Adopt the resolution.
Jumping in.
I got a bunch of motions.
Bunch of everybody. Yeah.
Got it.
I got a motion from Commissioner Sessions to adopt the resolution. Do I have a second?
I second it.
I got a second from Commissioner Fleming. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. At this time, we'll close public hearing. Thank y'all. So now we'll move on to, what was that one, 16?
17.
Moving on to item 17, hold a public hearing to consider adoption of a resolution approving special permit for a temporary use request number SPTU 180401 by American Promotional Events, DBA TNT Fireworks, to be granted a special permit for temporary use under Section 1410, Suwannee County Land Development Regulations for firework tent sales. Mr. Meeks?
Mr. Chairman, board members, this application is one that is similar to requests that you've had prior. It's a special permit for temporary use, number 18-04-01 by TNT Fireworks, to be a temporary use permit to allow a tent sale for fireworks from June 21st of 2018 to July 5th of 2018. This is the same company that has previously held the event at the same location for approximately the past 5 years or so, and I believe under our special temporary use permit process would be like the third time I think that they've come with their request before the board. They've attached copies of their state licenses and insurance, as well as the permit that's issued from the county, the fire marshal's office. The site plan indicates that the tent location would be consistent with the location of where it's been in previous years, and set up out there on the Walmart parking lot property. And as I previously stated, this would be a temporary use permit just during the duration of the dates that are requested, which is June 21st through July the 5th of 2018. At this time, I'll enter the staff report and file into the record.
And I'll accept them in reverse order, as the application is Composite Exhibit 1 and the staff report is Exhibit 2.
All right, at this time, does the board have any questions for Mr. Meeks? Hearing none, at this time, we'll open the floor to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak, they would make their way to the podium. Seeing none, at this time, we'll close public comment. Any discussion amongst the board? If not,
Move to approve.
a motion to approve by Commissioner Richardson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hill. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. This time we'll close public hearing. On item 18, hold a public hearing to consider adoption of a resolution approving special permit for temporary use request, number STP U180402 by Harriet Wells and John Wells, to be granted a special use permit under Section 1410 Suwannee County Land Development Regulations for a 5-day earth skills education gathering held February 6th through February 10th. Ron Meeks.
Mr. Chairman, board members, as the title has previously been stated, this would be an additional temporary use permit. This would be the first time that we've had this group propose a temporary use permit. However, they have been conducting their annual event in the city of Hawthorne at their park there, and at this time have tried to explore new areas to hold their annual event. The proposed dates for this event would be February 6th of 2019 through February the 10th of 2019. This would be an earth skills gathering. At first, when I was approached by the individuals, they had to kind of educate me a little bit on this, and having gone through our planning and zoning board for an advisory decision to the board, which was recommended for approval at our last month's board meeting, they did a nice presentation that basically showed the activities and stuff that is conducted on the property. It is a temporary use permit where you will have a variety of primitive type skills that are demonstrated and taught in classes that people can attend throughout the day. They do offer primitive camping that would be conducted on the property. For people who wish to do primitive camping, they don't have to. Others can stay in surrounding hotels, as well as people can travel through the day to attend different classes or certain specific classes that would be given on the property, whatever time specific they are. Everything that is done on the property is kind of geared towards primitive and like survival type skills. As previously stated, they would have primitive camping available, and they have held this event previously for multiple years in the city of Hawthorne. The owners of the land have approximately 161 acres. Not all of that property would be utilized for the temporary use permit. There are portions of different properties that would be inclusive of the temporary use permit. There are representatives, the property owners and representatives from the group that is here to answer questions and probably shed a little bit more light on the activities that are done. In the application, there's a narrative as well as the site plan that shows how the property would be spaced out, but they do have a little narrative that describes the Florida Earth Skills Gathering and the activities and topics and classes that would be offered for demonstration. And those include things from agricultural to ecology to buckskin sewing and pottery making and shelter building and things like this. So at this time, I would enter the file or my staff report in the file into the record. And you do have a resolution for approval with the provided information if the board so chooses to approve this request. And there is representatives and the property owners present to offer a little presentation to the board.
If I might, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
The application will be accepted as Composite Exhibit 1, and the staff report will come in as Exhibit Number 2. If I might, Mr. Chairman, I have another question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Meeks, when they're going to be doing the event, are there any additional requirements, for parking and crowd control and, because of the rural location of where it is?
Not necessarily in the land use regulations per se, other than what would be needed. They have shown on the site plan the areas where the parking would be provided, as well as providing for porta-johns and stuff on site, and those are also stated on the site plan. At our Planning and Zoning Board, that was kind of discussed a little bit. Planning and Zoning Board felt that there would be adequate areas for those uses.
All right. Any questions from the board
Yes, sir.
for Mr. Meeks?
No, actually, I don't, for not Mr. Meeks.
Okay. Did you say that somebody from there was making a presentation? If y'all would, come on up.
My name's Harriet Wells. I am the property owner, 22839 93rd Drive, O'Brien, Florida. And I just wanted to speak a couple of minutes about the property. We had set, about 20 years ago, we set aside, using the EQUIP program, an area that we consider a wildlife habitat area. At that time, cows were all in our pond and everything, so we set it aside, always hoping that we could have some kind of workshop or events there. That was just something that we really wanted to do. My nephew has been involved with this group for a long time and had started talking to us about it. We went this year to check it out because I hadn't seen it, and before I made a decision, I wanted to be sure. And if y'all would allow me, I'd just like to show you briefly this little poster that I made.
So if you want, we'll just pass it down.
So the center is our property, and all around the edges, starting at the top, is where it was held this year, and showing the camping and some of the classes and the kids that participated in the food preparation. They serve 2 meals a day, and as Ross is going to tell you more about all of the events, because I just wanted to come and show you. I didn't want to have something there if it wasn't well organized. And unfortunately, the main person, Ren, was ill today and could not come. She spoke to the zoning meeting, and so Ross has come to answer questions in just a minute. But I just wanted to be sure before I used property that it was something that was well organized, and I felt like was not being detrimental to us or to the community. We will be coming in a way that doesn't take it down through O'Brien and by the churches and the little ways, because you can come in through Fletcher Road and come back to us in a way that won't disturb anybody in the little, because it's right off of the area of O'Brien where downtown, but we won't have to be having to deal with any of that in terms of traffic, so. So if there's any questions for me, otherwise I'm going to let Ross tell you more about the event. I was really impressed by the way it was held, and I've certainly been impressed by the folks that I've met, every one of them.
Well, thank you.
Good evening. I do my best to describe the event. I'm typically
If
more...
you would, Mr. Ross, would you identify yourself with your address, please?
Ross Morton, 4329 Pelican Lane, Tallahassee, Florida.
Thank you very much.
I was sworn in. So, this isn't traditional for me. I do a lot of traditional skills, and that's largely what this event is about. It's a very family-friendly event. We have a lot of kids that come. It's a teaching and learning event. It's an educational event. Part of what we like about the property is the nature that's there. They have a beautiful pond because we do plant identification, plant walks, bird identification, as well as all the primitive survival skills, flint knapping, bow making, hide tanning. I have some different visual aids of sorts that if you want to see, these are, this is a hand-felted hat. I don't know if you want to pass it down if anyone's interested. Baskets. You can make Native American style flute kind of thing. This is out of bamboo. These are the kind of classes we do. It's primarily a volunteer-driven event. Blacksmithing, the spatula made. And so we rely on, nobody's making good money doing this. Everybody who's teaching, we get them gas money is what we hope to get. And it's all to try to pass. We feel a lot of passion about continuing these skills. Nobody really makes a living, tanning a coyote hide, for instance, But these are all things that it's part of our traditional history, and I think it's a good thing to bring to the community. It's all part of where we came from. It's a very, very low impact event. We've been it's been an 8-year-long event that we've held it. 5 of those years we've been at Little Orange Creek Nature Preserve. The last 2 years, the city of Hawthorne it was donated to the city of Hawthorne, and they're doing actually more infrastructure than we really need. So they're doing playgrounds and volleyball courts and things like that. So our needs are kind of changing as they're changing and becoming something different. So one thing we really like to do is reach out to the local community. So we offer for 3 hours, $5, 3 hours, you can come, take a class, see what everything's about. We like to be involved with the local community. We get as many people from around here as possible. It's a very nice location for us kind of to be halfway between Gainesville, which is one of the main places we've drawn some people from in the past, and Tallahassee, which is kind of the area more where I'm from. So this location seems really, really nice and a good fit. The land is beautiful. And I don't know, anything else that I could do to express what we're kind of going for. I think you probably can imagine it's kind of primitive skills, all those essential things mixed with an awareness of the world that we're living in now. And so as far as infrastructure goes, we keep it, it's camping, it's fairly primitive. People who don't enjoy that would utilize local hotels, go out to eat. So I'd be open to any questions, anything I can respond to.
Any questions from the board?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Couple of questions.
I'll do my best.
Number one, who is your target? What's your primary target audience for this type of an event?
This type of event, I have always been amazed. The target audience is very broad.
Specifically, I'm just looking for age.
Oh, for age.
Yes, age. What's your target age range that you're shooting for?
I would say, 20, 30s. We get a lot of kids, families, a lot of people, bringing their kids. Anybody under, let me make sure. Yeah, under 7 is free. So you can come, bring your kids. They can do classes. We do children-specific classes. But it is, I've seen the broadest range of people at these gatherings, people that I never would have expected. It's a broad age group. We intentionally have an area that is the ancestor fire, where we have our elders there, and a space, because we don't, in a lot of our world, we don't have as much appreciation for the elders. We're not in spaces sometimes, some of us, where we can take that time. So it's a village.
Second question that I've got involves the numbers on the application.
Okay.
Because in your application and in your information, you said you expect about 450 people on site. Then you added up the people, you broke them down to about 280. So my question is where's the other 170 coming from? Did you miss a group in that number?
Let me see if I can find where that is.
And I'm looking for at the application for the special zoning permit. And that is where it says 450 expected, 150 of these are workers, 70 are instructors, 60 are expected to be children. And then your information just provides, in the second paragraph, 450 participants, 2018, based on 2018.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. Sadly, our true coordinator, Teresa, who did the application, she's not here. What I would say is, I think what we've talked about is, we're going to probably lose some of the people that we've had in the past by moving to this location. And that's actually a good thing for us. Moving to a new site is a challenge, and creating that infrastructure in a good way. You asked about parking, and everything that I've seen, mostly what I've done in the past is the actual site work and coordination, and everything that this site has far exceeds what we had in Hawthorne.
Okay. And then the last part of this whole thing is involving your kids. When you guys are looking at educating children, this is obviously during the school year. In February, there's no special days out for this. So are you looking for more homeschool type of children, or are you looking at more evening classes for them and a little less in the daytime?
Yeah, so most of the people who come are typically the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That would be the busiest time. I know it's a 5-day event, but it's people coming mostly for the weekend. That's when the children really come. It's not a all of a sudden influx, but
Well, I was speaking to our superintendent, school board superintendent today, and talking to him about it, and he wanted to find out more information about it as well. So it might be a good venue for you to be able to advertise to get in
yeah,
for the
absolutely.
weekend.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have,
Okay, and thanks you wanted to say.
Did you have something you wanted to add to that?
I was just going to say that I believe that the information that we've put together since Brendan's not here, 600, they've had up to 600, it said, on the busiest days in the past at times. Last year, I believe 450 was the size of the group.
Okay.
We're trying to keep it small, at least for the first year, so we won't be trying to get more people other than, for folks in the community to be able to learn more about it. But that's why there's such a fluctuation of numbers there, is because it's been, the 600 was like on the busiest day one of the year. But last year, I believe the busiest was about 450.
Yeah, there was a time when we kind of peaked in numbers, and then we've kind of we've lost some people. And so last year, we had 450. So.
Yes, sir.
I have a few questions. I was looking at your topics of classes and demonstrations,
Uh-huh.
and when it says herbal healing, herbal medicine making, and then it's got spiritual discussions. When it pertains to medicine making and then the fire making and safety, you cleared all those hurdles to where, like public director, public safety, you've already done all that?
Yeah, we have a fire team that is designated towards, being aware of that. We have fire extinguishers, buckets of sand. We're doing everything, as far as I know, everything that we can and that we need to do to make that safe.
And the noise, the crowd around the neighbors and everything, all that?
It's a beautiful site. It's a beautiful place where, on the map there, you can see that it's bordered by pasture on two sides where there's not houses anywhere near that. We also, we just do
one thing.
acoustic music.
In February,
Uh-huh.
the noise travels very, very
Oh.
quickly through that dry air. So just
Yeah, I mean, we only do acoustic music, around a campfire at night. We do storytelling. There's some drumming. The loudest thing that we do, this isn't crazy, is a contra dance, which is like a traditional square dance with folk music. And sometimes we have one little speaker box there. But, it's nothing that is a wild. It's a very skill-oriented educational event.
And what are, this question is really more for Mr. Summers back in the back. Would we be able to support that with any type of crews that are nearby, especially during the weekend?
Yes, sir. They'll be required a permit, like we do all of our other events. They'll be required a permit and evaluation by the fire inspector, depending on what type of venues they have, and then depending on the population, it will be evaluated and see if it needed a special detail is assigned to them as far as a response. So once they go through their permit process, we'll evaluate it through the building department, and we'll go from there.
And I'll just simply say, I've looked this up online, and this group does this all over the United States, and Florida is just one of the gatherings, Earth Skills gatherings, and I have yet to find any negative on your group at all, any negative reviews, anybody posting something just downright mean. It's actually been, you got a pretty positive
Thank you.
result from this. So.
Yeah, and I've been involved in gatherings from here to Vermont, and teaching as well as involved in putting them on. So, but this is the only Florida gathering. This is the only Florida Earth Skills gathering. Many of the teachers, I just want to say, I mean, these are people who often, they're the ones going into schools and showing ancestral knowledge, sharing agricultural knowledge, and this is, it's an important thing that I think we should really.
And as Mr. Chairman, I have one more good question. I think every one of us agree with that. What type of food are you going to have? You're talking about eating. I saw that food on that picture.
Well, I mean, we eat good. You got to eat good. You got to eat good.
I mean, awesome, are you?
It's her nephew Rich is actually one of the best cooks you'll know, and so come on down and see us and.
That's what he wanted to know, is what time.
What time is dinner? I mean, in the past we've done pig roasts, and it's that's part of the thing of we're very aware of fire safety, and I understand the concerns, but it's also these are people who practice these things. I mean, you think about Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts and Girl Scouts and what they grow up to be. We kind of take good care.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
With the one I went to, and even in the notes here, We will have porta potties, they'll have a first aid station at the event staffed by an EMT and others that are first aid workers. They have a peacemaker and security team. So they have a lot in place, and some of it will become more local in terms of where the folks come from that are staffing these, or the porta potties and that kind of thing. But this is something that they're very aware of and have been doing for quite a while now. So I just wanted you to be sure to know that they do have an EMT, for instance, that will have an EMT at their first aid station. And a lot of the traffic is going to be mostly on the Friday, and particularly Saturday and Sunday, and that with for the children, particularly in schools, being involved there, that most of them come in on the weekends. So,
Are you looking for more of a permanent location?
well, we're hoping if this works out, that it will be.
Yeah, so part of us transitioning from Hawthorne and the city park is that we cannot create any infrastructure there. And some of what we like to do, I mean, these natural building techniques, we timber framed a beautiful post and beam structure there that we had to take down. We couldn't leave it there, you know. We've done an earth oven, a beautiful pizza earth oven. Oh, sorry, the park's here, you know. And I understand for what they're going for, and that's where moving to a private land situation where it could be, you know, creating infrastructure for them, hopefully, that would work for them, work for us in the future. We would love for this to be a continuing place for us to be.
We're happy for them to make some infrastructure.
It's amazing when you get a lot of people together, you can get a lot done pretty quick when it comes to building.
Are there any questions for him from the board? Thank you, sir.
Thank you all for your time.
At this time, I'm going to open the floor to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak, they'd make their way to the podium. Echo River's coming. You looking for a job teaching something? You've already been sworn in.
Oh, I don't have to do Jim Warden's
No.
everything over again? Okay, well, I forgot what I was going to say now, but I don't have to start like that. Listen, Harriet and her brother John, from my cousins, don't hold that against them. Don't hold that against them. Look more along the lines of their dad was the brother of Harry and Lamar Wells. I'm sure some of y'all remember who I always refer to as my Uncle Harry. Actually, he's her Uncle Harry, just mine by married. I think this is a good location for this, a good group. I'd like to see it become permanent, which you can, appreciate it. And
I think you had us into that family tree there.
Yeah.
Anyone else wishing to come up here and ruin this for them? Seeing no one else, this time we'll close public comment. All right, any discussion amongst the board? If not,
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Probably from Mr. Summers or the sheriff. I mean, 450 people is what they're shooting for. I mean, that's a good number. Is there a set number that the county has for having a presence there? I know you said, James, meeting the permit, but I mean, any kind of security or on your part or fire on your part when you get up over 400 people or 300 people? Or do y'all just kind of monitor it by each situation? I mean, it doesn't sound like they're going to be causing a bunch of fuss out there, but.
That's research, but I always heard, an officer per 1,000 person, that event. So, you're looking at 450, 600. So, but I would rather, if we, and like I say, it'll be decided in this permitting also, but, if we're going to have, always going to have two officers for safety reasons too, So we'd have at least two there for this event. If it come down to it, and it looks like it probably will. Actually, I would feel safer about that.
Sure.
Especially on the weekend.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Sure.
own security that is constantly a presence, always in radio communication. It's always ready to call if we need any help. We've never, at Hawthorne, even the year when we had almost 900 people, we never had any actual presence on the site. And we've never had an issue in that time where we needed to call an officer to help us in patrolling or anything like that.
Welcome to Suwannee County. I would feel better, Sheriff, I'd feel better if there was a coordination with your department.
Yeah, because I think what's going to happen is when, if, like I say, if the county approves it, then in the actual permitting it, you're required to have to do that.
I just wanted to express what we've done in the past and what it's worked.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
As far as the medical response things, their first aid EMTs will be evaluated because they cannot operate in our county without a medical director, so that would be evaluated. And then basically, same thing we do at Spirit of the Suwannee Park, because we range from 250 capacity of an event, 250 people, to 30,000 of capacity, from events. So we will evaluate that and deem what type of standby unit is required and what they're doing for that event, and evaluate through their permitting process, and then assign a unit for that event as we feel need. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any more discussion amongst the board? If not,
Move to approve.
got a motion to approve by Commissioner Richardson.
Second.
What was that, Mr. Hale?
Yep.
Got a second by Commissioner Hale. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign, passes 5-0. This time, we'll close public hearing. Thank y'all. Was that the last one? I think it was. Thank goodness.
It was.
Appreciate y'all bearing with me on public hearings. I don't know why we had to have a year's worth in one meeting. Where were we at? We did item 20. Item 21, discuss Florida Department of Emergency Management directive that Suwannee County Commissioner reimburse school boards the cost associated with opening storm shelters. Time we'll turn our attention to County Administrator Randy Harris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this is something new for us. I do not believe that this is going to apply to the most recent events that came through Suwannee County. We had a brief discussion on this yesterday in a meeting that we had at the EOC. But going forward, the state will expect county commissions to reimburse the cost to school boards for opening up their facilities for shelters with these events. Something that probably we'll need to consider when we get into our budget workshops later. But there's been some kind of lag in bringing this to the board because maybe some of you had read the letters that we've been receiving or emails that we've been receiving where there was the Florida Association of Counties was reaching out to FEMA to get confirmation that in fact this was something that was going to be required by FEMA. And I think what everyone is realizing is that FEMA is trying to buy time on, or the federal government is trying to buy time on all of these reimbursements that they've made promises of in the past. And that's literally what's happening here. So they're saying if county commissions request the assistance of the school board with the use of these facilities as shelters, that the county commissions will have to reimburse the school boards and then wait for reimbursement from FEMA. Later, I'm going to be having a discussion with the board about some other changes with FEMA and the way they're handling their paperwork and how they are downsizing and just pushing that paperwork back down to the local level for us to handle. But I'll address that at a later date. In any event, you have an agreement before you, statewide mutual aid agreement that was sent, and you can entertain entering into that agreement if you wish to, but I'm not asking you to do that this evening. I'd like to bring this back maybe in the next meeting. And at the same time, I participated in a meeting at the EOC yesterday I think that maybe the chairman and I can sit down in a near-term meeting with members of the school board and discuss some ideas on how maybe we can save some money with these events if we have to open these shelters. At the same time, in the conversations yesterday, I think there are some opportunities for us to communicate with the state on some of the requirements and maybe making some changes and helping them to have a better understanding of some of the impacts that they direct out of Tallahassee and impose on some local governments, particularly on the way that we're supposed to be handling animals and opening up these shelters and having these pet-friendly shelters. That can be extremely problematic for the schools. And I think that some decisions in the recent past, perhaps those making some of those decisions and sending out those directives didn't really contemplate some of the consequences associated with that and the burden that it imposed on the school system. So there will be an opportunity for us to have some conversation. The school board is willing to discuss those matters, and we're trying to get creative in how we can address some of these things and come up with some efficiencies. In any event, I just need to bring that to your attention, and maybe with the help of the county attorney and chairman, we can bring something back to the full board sometime soon that the board can agree on that we will send back to Tallahassee.
I got one question. Did they address anything or in that meeting, or have you heard anything, say there's an event in South Florida and we get an order from
I
the...
raised that question.
Well, my question on it is, we get an order from the state to open shelters here,
To be a host.
but we're not ever declared an emergency area, so then we're not eligible to...
So who's going to reimburse us is the question.
Yes.
Yeah, I raised that question yesterday and said that we're going to have to get an answer to that question. It's one that the state's going to need to answer, because if the state tells us that we need to open our shelters to host all these people from South Florida that are trying to evacuate, and, you know, an event goes through South Florida but doesn't come here, how do we get reimbursed? The reason I raised the question was because with indigent health care, if someone leaves Suwannee County and goes to South Florida and needs medical treatment and they are declared indigent, those medical facilities down there send us the bill, and we're obligated to pay it. So I thought that if we are directed to open a facility here and be a host county, but we don't have an event, then we need to have a good understanding in writing that we're going to be reimbursed so that we're not picking up the tab for that.
Yeah, because I think during the last storm, that shelter event was approaching $200,000, I believe, for the school board, if I remember.
I think it was under 200,000.
It was like 180,000, I think
Yeah.
is the number she gave me.
Right.
But that's pretty good lick,
Yeah, it
not to get reimbursed on.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
One other comment. When y'all make that discussion, bring up the transportation side of it too, because the transportation we provide, you know, we don't get reimbursed for either. And we shut down our operations to provide the emergency transportation to the shelters, yet we're not getting any, nothing's coming in, but we're giving, you know,
Right.
to the situation also. So please bring that part of it up.
Yeah, we'll do that. Clearly, we're going to have to make a trip to Tallahassee and communicate with someone. And I think that it would be advantageous to round up some other counties. I'll be honest with you. I don't have any doubts that some counties aren't really thinking that much about all of these issues. But I think that there's strength in numbers, and we need to round up some people and make a visit to Tallahassee and communicate all of our concerns, because they'll think about it once it's impacted them.
Yeah.
And these are real issues that cost us a fortune. So I'll bring this back sometime soon. Maybe the chairman and the county attorney and I can talk about it and meet again with members of the school board and just put all of our ideas together and then communicate to those in Tallahassee and come back with something that might work.
Irrespective, you know, we're still going to need an interlocal agreement with them moving forward. The way they changed the structure, if we don't have an agreement with the school board, we can't get reimbursed anyway. So we've got to, do all of that different.
And we have a draft, we actually have a draft of an agreement. I didn't bring that tonight because I wasn't going to ask for action tonight. I'm hoping that we can have at least another meeting and come up with some ideas. One of the ideas and one reason that that draft agreement didn't come back tonight was that we talked about some possibilities of saving some expense by, instead of having all the school board employees handle all of their facilities, maybe share some of that with county commission employees that we are paying anyway, to offset some of that expense. So that was just one of the ideas that we discussed. But it'll be coming back soon because we could have an event this year.
Yep. Any further questions on that one? All right, moving on to item 22, discuss possible board action in the Mizell's building. County Administrator, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I just want to brief you on an evaluation that occurred last week. I think there were half a dozen of us over there, some from facilities, and myself and others. We took a close look at that building. As you know, we didn't purchase that property because of that building. We purchased it because we needed the land to build a retention pond and a parking lot, which we did to accommodate the state attorney's office. After a close evaluation of that particular structure, it's my opinion, and I think the opinion of others that were in there, that the building, not only the warehouse portion of that, but the block portion in the front is probably most conducive to, with some modifications, being nothing more than storage. And we know we have a large need for storage, but earlier on, I know that many of us thought that maybe the front portion, the block section, could be used as an office space if it were modified, but it would actually probably require modifications that start with a large excavator and a big dumpster.
I voted for the bulldozer.
So it would be best if we take a different approach and just look at that for storage. Now, having said that, if we can begin changing that over to storage, climate control storage is what we're going to need. We can then free up that upstairs in the building next door, and it can become the office space that it was actually created to be when it was modified several years back. So there's a benefit to that. I'll be going to bid soon on replacing all the metal on the outside of the building, the roof, and the two walls that have metal on them, and then we'll look at what it's going to cost to paint block portion, and then we'll go inside and start carving out a game plan to bid some more of that. The board had previously authorized that, so we're going to start trying to put a game plan together for that facility. But right now, unless the board directs me to do otherwise, I don't plan to pursue that as an office facility. It would just cost too much.
Any questions?
I have one. But you would need to add a HVAC system of some sort to climate control it?
Yeah, what I would do in portions of it is, it lacks insulation. I mean, there are lots of things that it lacks, but we'd have to go in there and just carve out sections of it and frame up what we need and insulate it and put the climate control in. And fortunately, it's large enough where we could, phase those things in over time. If we put a new roof on it and close up the walls with new metal, we'd need to build a loading dock and a ramp on the back side of it. We'll have, I think, probably many years of storage there that we can continue to grow into over time as we need to.
So the air is not efficient, that's already over there in air conditioning?
Well, most of the air conditioning now is the nail holes in the metal on the outside of the building. There isn't any air conditioning in there other than that.
Okay.
But what I would do is replace all the metal and then go inside and really just frame up the areas that we need for storage, insulate those, put the electricity in them, and heating and cooling. And it should be pretty efficient because you won't have people walking in and out like they do in office space all day long. Like I said, it's so large back there that we can, phase that in over time. I wouldn't do all of it at one time. I'd just go in and do what we need initially to free up the upstairs of the building next door, and we'll have plenty of room there for a long time.
I think you put your loading dock in the back, I think it's big enough too that you can petition off for each constitutional office a small, they're not mingling their storage together if the need arises.
Yeah.
I know the supervisor of elections needing climate control store now with a loading dock, and that's the first
Yeah.
thing that comes to thought.
That's right.
Any further questions on this? I don't. All right, thank you. All right, moving on to item 23, discuss possible
I think
board.
Mr. Summers had a
Oh,
question.
I thought you were coming up here for the next item.
On that, if we can get with department heads, I need some storage for patient records that's secured and climate controlled. So when we look at that, if we've got to, I'm trying to get away, trying to go to the cloud, and our companies are hosting a lot of our patient records now, but I still have about 7 years that I'm going to have to maintain. Hopefully after that, we won't have any, but we're going to need some storage. So be in that consideration when it gets to that point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else? Moving on to item 23, discuss possible board action, assessment for fire and solid waste. Randy Harris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, like we did last year, the recommendation is going to be that we leave our fire assessment and solid waste assessment at the current rates for next year. And then sometime early part of next year on the fire, it'll be time for us to go ahead and conduct a rate study again. We're supposed to do that every 5 years. So, but the recommendation for now, because we have a calendar, we have to start all this early in the year. So your staff is already working on the whole budget for next year. We're doing a little bit earlier this year because we've got so many bids and other things happening at the same time. But the assessment rates, we have to go ahead and make a determination that we are going to increase them or do something different. And the recommendation today is that we leave them at the current rate.
Any thought from the board? Need that in a motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'll just by way of reminder, a motion would only be that that the board is agreeing that the proposed rate, and it will be proposed until such time that it's adopted later,
Yes.
will not exceed the current rates.
Motion approved.
I got a motion
Second.
by Commissioner Fleming that the proposed rates for fire and solid waste for the upcoming year remain the same. I got a second by Commissioner Hale. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Item 24, discuss possible board action, any issues associated with water or wastewater plant at I-75 and 136. You got anything new going on out there?
No, sir, except that in the consent agenda, you've authorized us to go ahead and negotiate with a couple of engineers for the design work associated with that. And we've had a lot of survey work and other evaluations occurring at the same time. So hopefully we'll come back in your next meeting with a proposed contract with a couple of engineers to continue with the design work for the water and the sewer. That's where we are right now.
All right. Did not see any additional agenda items. Did anyone have anything extra? I didn't see anything. No. All right, moving on to item 26, public concerns and comment. Anyone wishing to speak, make the way to the podium. Name, address for the record, please.
I should have got up whenever after the Betty for staff reports, but I just wanted to, y'all talked to y'all's city county workshop, tried to redo a workshop in about 60 days or so. And if you want to do that, that's great, but with the election of the city council, we got 2 new councilmen coming on board, council folks coming on board. So I would recommend if you want to do that, wait till at least July, so you don't have to get old guys and new guys.
I know President Thomas had made that in the meeting, and we talked about it, but we still haven't heard anything back from them as far as I'm aware of, have we?
Well,
I know they've been working on a proposal, and I think they told me due to the way their meetings fall with ours, they wouldn't have it to us until beginning of next month. So my thought was kind of waiting on that response and the new members to sit.
I can shed a little light on that. I received a letter from the city manager. The summary version is a proposal that we form a committee to talk about technical aspects and lots of other things. In my mind, that's unnecessary. We asked for rates, and we spoke to some very elementary issues. I think any technical teams that need to be established to evaluate a lot of the things that were expressed in the letter, and I'll be glad to share that letter with each of you and anyone else that wants a copy of it. But I think the idea that we might need to establish a committee to talk about technicalities associated with the utilities is something that probably needs to occur if we ever come to an agreement that the city is going to be a provider of utilities to the county, with the county being a bulk rate customer. That's a very elementary proposal that we brought to the table in that meeting. Now, that proposal we don't have a response to, what we requested, but we do have a letter from the city manager that speaks to a lot of other issues associated with utilities that I think maybe should follow the response to the
We
initial question.
spoke at the same thing at the workshop, and until we decide whether or not they have any interest in being a provider, all the other stuff is, no, there's no point in it. So until they answer those, I think, we only sent them 3 questions, didn't we?
Pretty much.
I think until we come to an agreement on that, creating a committee or anything further than that, I mean, in my mind, is pointless, unless that committee is going to decide whether or not they're going to
No, sir, I
be a
don't
player or
disagree with
not.
you. I think that the questions that we ask probably should precede any other additional meetings on technicality.
I agree.
When y'all want to schedule one, just let me know. We'll get it in the books and coordinate that.
All right, appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak? How about we go ahead and set it, Greg, for shortly thereafter when you get the X2 redone?
That certainly would be an option, and if anything happened to move faster, we also have the depot that would be a great location for that with the improvements that James and his crew did in getting drop-down screens and hooking up the internet and such. You can do presentations for any future expansion that the city wants to do. We'll be glad to provide that technical aspect for them. But that's certainly be a good spot in case they move faster. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? All right, we'll move on to administrator comments. Did you have anything else to add on from what you're already going over?
A couple things real quick. We actually met and talked about Exhibition 2 a couple weeks ago, and that's one thing that we hope to have ready to go to bid on soon. But aside from that, I'm going to give you a quick update on that railroad crossing that I've been working on for 5 years.
And I already knew that. I was just picking on Greg.
Okay. And that it isn't Greg's fault.
No, I know it's not.
We had to meet out.
I was just busting his chops.
In any event, the rail spur is actually what I've worked on for the last 5 or 6 years, actually closer to, probably 6 years. But as you know, I had indicated that because I knew that we would have some CDBG funding left over from the rail spur, I went ahead and asked that grant administrator to allow us to use the balance of that for the relocation of the crossing that is going to be taken out with that new rail spur installation. After multiple phone calls and emails back and forth, I had a meeting with DOT because this requires approval by DOT and CSX. I had a meeting with DOT yesterday, a very productive meeting. They understood what we needed to do, and they actually responded, got a packet of information back to us today. It's a draft of an agreement between all of the parties. Essentially says that that CSX will do the work in their right-of-way and the county will reimburse them. And fortunately, at this time, CDBG is willing to allow us to use that excess funding. That will not pay for the road work. We would have to pay for the additional road work required as well. But my hope is to go ahead and I'll plan to expedite that agreement. I sent it over to the county attorney today. The board had authorized us before to apply for all of these things, so that's really what we're doing. You also agreed to pay North Florida Professional Services to assist us in that effort, and they have. They had prepared a package that we sent to DOT previously. So that's good news. If we can get CSX to move as rapidly as DOT has, then we'll have it made. I was encouraged that the representative with DOT has a good relationship with their counterpart at CSX, and they're going to communicate their recommendation that it be approved. If that person agrees with CSX, then it has to go to the top floor of CSX and see if they're prepared to agree as well. So that's where we are on that right now.
Anyone else?
Did anyone ever claim the line that was in question?
Well, the one in the US 90?
Yes.
Yeah. No one ever claimed that. Let me elaborate a little bit for the public. The engineering firm that designed the turn lanes on US 90 that are under construction right now, in fact, close to being paved, undertook an exhaustive evaluation of all of the existing utilities, and you have to certify with your plans to DOT that you've identified all of the utilities, which they did. And there were no other companies indicating that they had any other lines out there except what had already been delineated in the plans. And when the contractor got started, they found another line out there, a large steel line. And the initial phone call to me was that everyone thought that it was just an old abandoned line. And they suggested they were just going to cut it out of the way and proceed with some drainage culverts and other things. And I suggested to them that they were taking on that liability because I wouldn't cut it. I said it could be a gas line, it could be anything. Well, by the next morning they had agreed with me that they weren't going to cut it, so they made some modifications to their drainage plans. And but to date, no one has claimed that particular line. No one knows what it is. But the road project will be completed soon, in fact.
Oh, thank you, sir. Moving on to item 28, board members' requests and comments. Commissioner Richardson, you have anything?
Just hats off to the sheriff for what his department did in support of Gilchrist County Sheriff's Department. Appreciate that. I think it says a lot about our department and our sheriff.
Mr. Fleming?
I just want to bring out that I went over to Lake City this morning, Columbia County traffic safety meeting, and we have been going over there and we've been getting some good feedback on traffic out on 129 North around the interstate and the lighting. And also I had about 3 years ago we went over to Lake City to a DOT workshop, Mr. Harris and Commissioner Gamble. I think you was over there, wasn't you?
I don't remember if it was me or not.
Commissioner Sessions, were you there?
It was me and you and Mr. Harris and the sheriff and,
Well, it's been about
You're
3
talking
years
about
ago.
3 years ago, I think I went to that.
About 3 years ago. Anyway, I got in a discussion with one of the consultants about a possible overpass in the city of Live Oak in the event that if a train were to derail, that train sit there 2 or 3 days, how would you get around the city? And that was a very good question that when I was talking with him, he told me, he said, we can put an overpass anywhere. The DOT, I spoke with them this morning, they will do a study, and I asked the guy would he come and do a presentation. So I'm gonna give him your number, let you contact, let him, y'all get together and talk. Get on the agenda, bring the guy out of Tampa to do a presentation on what it would look like. It never happened, but it can very much happen. I listen to these trains all the time coming through Live Oak, and they are very long. Out there at work, I see when we're at Dorman, they are a company that remove trains off tracks. When they derail, I see those trucks all the time with flashing lights going up and down the interstate all through the night, trying to move trains that have hamstruck communities, and so it's just a matter of time that it will happen to us. So I think it's important that I don't want to pass it by if we get the opportunity for them to come in and do a study. He did show me how it would be done, how it could be done, not go across, but a way that it would come up and go down the track, come out on 90 East. So when I get in touch with him again, I will get him your number so we can sit down and talk with him. That's all I have.
All right, thanks, sir. Mr. Hill?
Nothing.
Mr. Sessions?
I had a concerned citizen call me this weekend, and his concern was about trash on the highways and near the places where where our dumps are. His big concern was that we possibly need to find people that trash comes out of their vehicles on the way to the dumps, that we're not overseeing it very well. That was his concerns. And I told him that, it's a big issue that, I personally clean up my road. I mean, I go down and pick up garbage all the time, and I've found garbage bags and looked through them and found out whose they were and went to their house with it, But anyway, that was a concern brought up. I promised him I'd bring it up, that we have a little bit of issue in the county. I don't know if we should put something in the paper that, please, everybody, police your own trash and make sure you get it to the dump and don't lose it. And if you do, go back and pick it up. But that was a big concern of this particular person over the weekend, and I promised him I'd bring it up, that it was
Mr. Chairman?
an issue.
Yes, sir.
Can I comment on that for a second?
Yes, sir.
We actually, and I think,
It's about 6
I
months.
thought most of you had seen this, but we had prepared a little flyer that we handed out at the collection sites several months back that actually simply outlined what the state law is on hauling trash that isn't secured with a lid or a tarp or something. It requires a first offense. In fact, Sheriff, we're going to blame this on you if you have to pull anybody over. First offense requires an appearance before a judge, and it, spelled out what the fines were, and that someone can even lose their license for 6 months. And I think the second offense requires that they lose their license for, I think it's at least a year. I can't remember now. I'd have to go back and look at it. But it's pretty stiff. And we did that as a courtesy just to help people understand what the actual state law is. So we can resurrect those flyers and begin to circulate those again, but we'd have to ask the sheriff to agree to get his deputies to write some warnings. I mean, I think warnings would, I think that makes a big difference.
A few warnings would probably help the situation.
I think warnings would be very helpful, but clearly, we will never have the manpower that it takes, even with inmates, to keep the litter up off of our roads in this county. It's horrible. And you see it at all of the intersections. People seem to have an interest in unloading their cars of all their cups and bags and everything at the intersections. But then on the highways, you see lots of bags that have blown out of these open containers and pickup trucks driving to the collection sites. So if the sheriff can help us out getting some deputies to just write some warnings, And we can get those copies out again and circulate them at the collection sites. That might help. Anything at this point would be helpful.
This particular person, if you give me one of those flyers, I'll mail it to him or hand it to him, just to show him, what we've done. And I knew we had done something like that. I just, at the time of the discussion on Saturday, I just couldn't recall it all, so.
Right. We have that. In fact, we had it, one side of it done in Spanish. I mean, we were trying to communicate with everyone out there that we could.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
It was part of our LEP plan, ahead of time.
That's right.
Since we're talking about garbage,
Yes, sir.
just to remind the board of a conversation that we had several months back that I would like to see resurrected again sometime soon about possibly doing some Sunday afternoon openings, especially during the summertime, down in the south end of the county when we start having our folks in Three Rivers. Most of them leave on Sundays. They have no place to take their garbage. If they're trying to take their garbage out on Sundays, they have no way to get inside. And it would be a conversation I would like to have, even if it's just for a few hours.
I've had some,
Not a
I've actually
conversation.
had a couple phone calls on that so far since the river season has picked up. So,
Most of those are leaving or stopping by Galliman Park and other parks, leaving it there for us, so.
well,
But we're trying to collect it as
that's
much
what I
as
was
we
fixing to
can.
say is Royal Springs area and Charles Springs parks have been catching a good bit of that garbage where they know the site's closed. They've been pulling in and putting it in those bins there.
Like at Galliman, we don't have a bin. We've
I mean,
got
the
trash
trash cans.
And
Yeah.
they're letting us have all we care for.
And one more comment.
Yes, sir.
One thing I forgot to mention, the Blueberry Festival in Welborn will be the 2nd of June. So that'll happen between now and our next meeting, so everybody just remember that.
Thank you. Anything else about garbage? Only thing I have is, I don't know, it's been probably a month, maybe 6 weeks ago. I had an email, I'm sure y'all got it too, but I had asked Dr. Jackson to submit our incentive program to the National Associations of Counties as possibly one of their economic development awards. And we got news back, a week ago? That Suwannee County had earned the National Achievement Award for Business Incentive Program to promote economic development. So I thought that was a pretty big deal that our efforts are now being recognized across the nation. And I just wanted to bring that up tonight. And here's a copy of it if anybody wants to take a look at it. Other than that, I don't have anything. If no one else does, I'll need a motion to adjourn.
Move. Second.
Thank you all for coming out.